I've been wanting to film for the past couple of days and I just haven't had time with my job. It's just been so busy this week. We have a lot of people on vacation. So every night when I come home, I just want to cook dinner. I want to sit down with my book and then I fall asleep pretty much immediately after 5 minutes of reading. I'm sure many of you can relate. But now it's the weekend and I finally have some time to film. So I wanted to update you guys with a episode of my last three reads, which is kind of something I've been doing here on the channel just because I like to do mini book reviews rather than like super long in-depth reviews because that's what I have on my book blog. So I thought that today I would update you on my last three reads. The first book that we're going to be talking about is called Poor Choices by Adrienne Andover. The second book that we're going to be talking about is called La Dolce Vita by Caitlin Alice Gilbert. And the third book that we're going to be talking about is called What the Heart Wants by Ella Starnell. So I figure I'll talk about them in the order that I finished them. So the first book that we'll discuss is Poor Choices by Adrienne Andover. This is a cozy mystery, and this is actually the second book in his Mixology Lounge mystery series. I reviewed the first book last year and I really enjoyed it, so when I was given the chance to review the second book, I was like, heck yes, sign me up. So to set the stage here, this series takes place in a fictional small town called Hope Mills, Pennsylvania. It's very cute, very quaint, and the main character, his name is Reese, and he recently, in the first book, he opened up a mixology lounge, and it's really cool. It's a literary speakeasy of sorts, and it's called Subplot. I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, man, I really want to go check that out. And me too, me too. But anyway, so in the second book, Reese is really excited because he's hosting his first comedy night at the lounge. They sold tickets ahead of time, and they have a comedian who's really popular on social media. She does kind of like skits, and something that is really cool is that she does like bookish content. And that's really interesting for Reese because, he has a literary lounge. And the details that the author puts into this series are so great, like the different cocktails that they come up with, the idea of having like the menus inside of books. It's really cool. Again, I just really want to go there. I wish it was a real place. But there's also a lot of drama that goes on at the comedy night, and there's just different tensions going on. Like, the comedian seems to have some tension with a lot of people, including her manager. There's a big wig from like a streaming network who comes to the show, and it's like he's casting a television show. But then there's like a heckler, and then there's a guy that gets mad at the comedy and he storms out. So when the comedian winds up murdered, there's a lot of different suspects. And the main character, Reese, he has to kind of get involved and try to figure out what's going on because it just so happens that his best friend might be framed for the murder. I really enjoy this series because of the atmosphere, because of the setting. I really just love all of the details that go into subplot, and I also really like the community. The main character, Reese, he has a lot of friends in his small town. He also hangs out with his parents a lot, which I think is very sweet. So that's something that I really enjoy. If you're looking for a cozy series with a good community and a good cast of characters, I would definitely recommend this one. That's all I'm really going to say about the plot because I don't want to give anything away, but I think that Adrienne Andover has a really good series going on here, and I look forward to seeing what comes next. Hopefully, there are many more books in the series because there's also kind of like a romantic subplot in this book, and I thought it was so cute. I'm really rooting for these characters, and I really want to see what happens to them next in book three. So yeah, if you're looking for a new cozy series, I definitely recommend starting with book one, which is called Whiskey Business. I'll put a link down below if I remember to do it. Hopefully I do. And then Poor Choices, which is the one that just came out in June. That is book two in the series. So next we're going to talk about La Dolce Vita by Caitlin Alice Gilbert. And this book was such a fun surprise for me. I wound up listening to the audiobook, which I was given a review copy by NetGalley. And I wasn't really sure what to expect because the main character, Isabella Rhodes, she is a congresswoman. Well, a former congresswoman. She has an unfortunate incident where that causes her to not be reelected. And so afterwards, she goes into a bit of a tailspin and she's like, what am I? What is my life? What am I doing? And she winds up going to Italy, and I love that for her. There's lots of mentions of like Letters to Juliet, Under the Tuscan Sun, and all kinds of like Italian like rom-coms. And I love that for her. So she actually goes back to this small town called La Musa. I'm not sure if that's a real town or not. I'll have to double check afterwards. If you know, please leave me a comment down below. But so when Izzy was in college, she actually did like a study abroad thing and she studied in Italy. So she decides to go back there as kind of like a way to transition into a new life, figure out what her purpose is, what she wants to do. And while she's there, she lives in the house of a woman named Anita. She rents a room there. And it just so happens that Anita's son, Benito, is the mayor, and he also lives in the house. And at first, like, Izzy's kind of like, why do you live in your mom's house? Like, you're a grown man. And there's a very, like, palpable tension between them. Benito is like, oh, you're going to go back to America. Just wait. And Izzy's like, no, I'm starting a new life here. This is where I live now. But I really liked the back and forth between them. I thought that some of the scenes were so good. I really like a hate to love relationship kind of novel, so highly recommend if you're into enemies to lovers. I thought Isabella was really cool. I loved how badass she was in the beginning scene where she was at a Congress meeting. And at first, I didn't really think I was going to like Benito. I was like, oh, he's too straight laced. He's no fun. But little by little throughout the book, I softened to him. And at the end, I really wanted him and Izzy together. So I highly recommend this one. It's a contemporary romance. It's very fun if you like books that are set in other countries. I don't know how accurate it is, but I'm assuming it is because I've never been to Italy. I don't know. The characters are really fun. I loved reading about Izzy's travels. I like stories where the main character is kind of like trying to recreate themselves and figure out what they want because that's so relatable. Heck, do any of us even know what we're doing? It was a really surprising read for me. I did listen to the audiobook and I thought the narrator was really good too. And honestly, it was a 5-star read for me. I would absolutely read it again. I would buy a copy for my best friend. Highly recommend if you're looking for a fun contemporary romance set in another country. And last but not least, we have the book What the Heart Wants by Ellis Darnell. And this is actually a first time book by this author. I think that I signed up for an ARC through a Facebook group, and I was really pleased when she selected me, so I was really excited to check out this book, write a review, share my thoughts. I believe it's marketed as a romance, but to me, it really felt like a coming of age story. It's about the main character. Her name is Thea, and she's around 20 years old. And after her mother passes away from a tragic car accident, she goes to live with her aunt. And her aunt lives in like kind of like a small coastal town. So on one hand, the story is told from two perspectives. We have Thea, who is dealing with her grief journey, and then we have her aunt Beth or Beth Ann. I never really understood. I don't know. It's a little confusing what her name actually is. But she runs a diner called Beth Ann's Diner, which is kind of like a hub of the small town. And from Beth's perspective, she is trying to be a caretaker or like a parent figure for the first time. And she's also dealing with an unrequited love from her best friend, Charlie. But is it unrequited? Well, you'll have to read to find out. I loved the beach setting. I loved how sweet all of the main characters were. Like, even when there were fights going on, I was just like, everybody's so caring and they're so nice to each other. I really liked how therapy was mentioned in this book. The main characters were honestly going through a lot. Thea lost her mother. Beth Ann lost her sister. And that's a lot to deal with. So I really liked how the author brought up like therapy, asking people for help, looking for support and community. I thought that was really nice. I was totally rooting for Beth and Charlie to like figure their stuff out. It's kind of like a gender swapped Gilmore Girls where like Charlie is the Lorelai, although he's not really kooky like Lorelai, he's, a police officer. Beth Ann is kind of like the Luke. Does that make sense? If you're a Gilmore Girls fan, you might get it. It's not like they're not totally the same, but it just gave me the same like small town vibes. People trying to figure out that they're perfect for each other. You know the deal. So yeah, this was a sweet story. It very much felt like a coming of age type of thing to me, or like a women's fiction. I was glad that the ending was sweet. I think this would be a good book to read in summer just because it kind of takes place during summer and it's in a beach town. I did share a book review on my blog, which I will share in the description down below. I did give some trigger warnings just because I think you should be aware of certain things that are mentioned in the story. There is some talk about DV, there's some talk about grief. There's just, a lot of dark topics that are covered, and I think that, you just want to be aware of them before you go into this story. But yeah, I think that's all I had to talk about today. Those were my last 3 reads, and I have a couple more coming up soon, so make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are a new subscriber and if you're here because of my used book haul video, I just wanted to say hi. Thank you for, subscribing and coming back. I really enjoyed making that video because I love doing book hauls. So I hope to do more content like that in the future. But for now, I hope you stick around for more book recommendations and more bookish content. So, yeah, I think that is it for today. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you in my next video.